defensively speaking, excited and happy where we're at as a defense this first quarter of the season. Obviously, there are things that we got to clean up and things that we want to improve on, and we will do that. But looking forward to this next quarter, looking forward to this game, and always looking forward to coaching the players. Questions?
You guys are historically good against the run right now. Obviously that's going to go up and down, but just what do you think has been the catalyst behind your success stopping the run so far through 4 games?
Players, and players playing well. Players understand exactly what we're doing. And players have pride. And for the most part, I give all the credit to those guys. Every time they go out to practice, like that's their motivation. And we're in the improvement mentality and mindset for our guys. And that's every time we step on the field. So obviously they've improved, and they're going to continue to improve because that's their mindset.
Just to follow up that, how much has the linebacker play played into that run defense?
There's no difference. We're in the business of improving. That's what those guys have been doing.
I asked Aleem about this just last year. We talked about how he and Alex were the only ones that were the continuity heading into the season.
Yep.
You had a lot of young pieces last year. So how important was it just the chemistry and the continuity those guys built through maybe some of the rough patches last year to playing into what you guys are doing this year?
I think you're going to hit that no matter what. Offense, defense, special teams, you're always going to have a rough patch. I don't know what people think this is. This is not a game. This is grown men out there playing. And every now and then you're going to have rough patches. And like we had some. I mean, hell, we had one against Seattle. But when you have men that understand and, again, to have pride and want to be good, that makes all the difference in the world. And with the staff that we have, how we're just like beating into these guys, man, this is an improvement type business. And those guys really, really understand that, probably more than any other time right now, because you see it in practice. All the fundamentals, all the techniques that we talk about, I mean, those guys go out there and they really try to give us that as much as possible. And to me, that's the number one thing. Like, the players, like, they deserve all the credit in the world for how they've been playing.
And just anecdotally, it seemed like you moved Hutchinson around a little bit more last game than maybe you guys have in the past. What does that do for him to free him up? What does that do for
really
the
haven't.
defense?
He's been doing the same things. So it's just the fact that guys around him, and even him, has been executing at a high level. And that's what you have to do in this league. I come from a place where the saying was, and we even said it here, it's not what you play, it's how you play. And where I was at, I mean, we didn't have a lot of calls. The guys just executed at a high level, and the coaches made sure they put the players in positions to be successful. And really, that's our philosophy here, for the most part. So Hutch is going to continue to do what he do. He's going to play at a high level because that's just who he is, along with the rest of the players.
Around is part of putting him in the right spot to make the right plays, I guess.
That's just what we do.
With Hutchinson, some guys are just built different, can handle things differently. You've got him playing more than 90% of snaps through these first 4 games. Does that just speak to his ability physically, mentally to be prepared for a workload like that, or is that something you look forward to maybe managing a little bit more as the season goes on?
Listen, I was with a guy, Cam Jordan, that played actually more than that. And he's a freak of nature when it comes to conditioning, when it comes to understanding, just mentally, just on another level. And Hutch is no different than that player. And listen, those players don't come around too often. But in the first 2 years, he's been that type of guy. Obviously you want to manage him, but sometimes the players like, listen, coach, I can go. And that's just who he is. And, man, you do everything you can to try to alleviate that. But, man, when they show you who they are, you allow them to go out there and play.
Speaking of Hutch and the defensive line, we had an agreement that I'd ask you about the discipline on the defensive line. What have you thought about it? It's been a couple of weeks.
What have you thought about it?
I think it looks better. I think it looks better. But it's
well,
honestly...
we're in the improvement business. So every time we hit the field, game or practice, we're trying to improve. So, listen, I wish this was a business where everybody's going to be perfect. You can do everything right, but it just doesn't happen that way. But you coach your ass off and you play your ass off to do things the right way. And our guys are doing that.
Are you happy with it then? I mean, are you
Am I
satisfied?
happy?
Yeah, right now with the discipline, the level of discipline.
Absolutely. I mean, guys are playing hard. We're doing some pretty good things. So, and there's room for improvement. I'm happy the way those guys are playing.
Just one last thing to put it low on Hutchinson. Just how do you, I think he's got 11 hurries and 3.5 sacks.
Yeah.
How do you think he's played so far, the impact that he's had?
He's played well. He's played well. But listen, he know it. I know it. His coach that's in his room knows it, that he can improve on some things. I would say this player wants to be the best. And there's not a day that he doesn't go on that practice field and try to do that. So everything that he wants as a player, me as a coach is gonna try to give it to him, because that's my job. And he can accept that, and he wants that. And you don't have a lot of players that you get like that, and we just happen to have one in him, and there's others that we have that's right along that mentality that you really, really like.
Coach, you mentioned executing at a really high level and
Yeah.
fundamentals and techniques. How much can you sense just your players trusting each other and that also playing a factor in especially how well the run D is right now?
That's a really good assessment, because that's another thing that's happening with us as a defense is the trust factor. And when you have guys and when you tell guys just execute and do their job, you have to trust the man next to you is doing their job. And you really see that, within the players. And listen, there's going to be ebbs and flows on how this thing go, and you just can't get away from that. But we understand that. We really do. But every time you go out and you just think about improving, that usually takes you right through the hard times of offense, defense, special teams, just understanding that. And our guys try to do that.
What are you seeing from Bryce Young through this first quarter of the regular season?
He processes really, really well. Listen, man, it's hard for a rookie quarterback in this league, especially off the jump coming in and starting. But you see the talent, you see him process, you see him make full field reads. And I'll tell you what, he's an impressive young man. It's the reason why he was, he did things he did in college. And you could see him being a top flight quarterback as the years go by. So, he's doing some really good things.
This is obviously the best the defense is playing in your time here.
Yeah.
Did you always have the confidence that you could get to this level? And if so, what gave you that confidence?
Yes, to answer your question, I've always had confidence. Man, this league is tough. And, man, I've seen a lot of really, really good coaches not have success early, and they're fired or whatnot, and then end up going somewhere where they have the time to get exactly how they want to be, and get the staff they want to get in, get the players they want to get in, and you see success happens. And that's just what happens in this league. And as a coach, you know that, and that's just what it is. So you have to have confidence in what you do, and you have to have confidence in the players doing exactly what you want them to do. And right now, you see that with our guys. And not just me, you see the staff having confidence. You see them having confidence in us as coaches and having confidence within each other to go out there and execute at a high level.
How much did you hear the outside criticism of I'm assuming you heard it, how much did you hear the fire AG, AG's got to go? You were a player, I'm sure you were no stranger to criticism.
Man, I've been the toughest media market in the world. And a lot of times, that's just white noise to me. It's really funny. But, man, we keep going. Just as a player, man, I've played one of the hardest positions there is in this league. And once you get beat, you're the worst thing there is. Once you give up yards or as a coach, you're the worst thing there is. And it's just part of it. Listen, we're in the business of criticism, and that's not going to change. And I know that, and that's just part of it.
Any satisfaction of quieting critics at all?
No, for what? Man, I'm a coach. That's all I think about is coaching.
AJ, you didn't mention there are there is a trigger-happy nature to this business, right? Like, guys don't get a chance to figure it out a
Yeah.
lot. Dan never really wavered in his support of you, regardless of what that outside side noise was. So, just knowing you had that stable support through whatever rough patches there may have been, how valuable was that to you as a coach?
Well, I would say I would answer the same way I just answered that question of just a man that knows and that's been around, and he doesn't waver, when things get rocky. Because that's how this league is. You take a look at, I look at a mentor of mine, Coach Payton, you see what he's going through. I could tell you right now what he's doing. All right, he's standing right here, and he's just continue to coach. And that's the way we've been brought up in this league is, man, just trusting what you're doing and continue to coach. And that's what he's done. That's what I'm going to do. And that's, how we was brought up in this league.
Just one matchup, just how
Yeah.
important is a guy like Thielen to a young quarterback
Wow.
like Bryce Young, and just that matchup this week with Will, if he's asked to step in there, how important of one is that for you guys?
I'll tell you what, that's a guy that that I'm impressed with. Actually known personally just from being Pro Bowls and he's been there, and just to seeing exactly how he operates. Very smart, dependable, trustworthy. You really see that with the quarterback in Thielen. And even though you could say the skills are diminished, the mentality and the smarts has continued to rise. And that's why he's having the success that he's having. So he's a guy that we have to pay attention to, because he's a really good player.
Just the run game, since they ran it so well last year. How different is it? New staff, new players?
Say that one more time.
The run game, how different is it from what they did last year? Just because.
Listen, when it comes to the run game, I think across this league, you get a lot of the same things. Some guys might turbo motion, some guys might regular motion, but you getting what we call bounce open, belly open, crunch, and everybody runs the same thing. It's just the players that's operating, how they do it, how they block it. Do you have players that do it at an elite level? So we just have to make sure that we continue to do the things that we're doing and doing it at a high level. And just like the question before, or the assessment before, man, make sure that we trust in each other. And again, that's what we've been doing a good job of.
With Sam Laporta, we talk about young players having hot starts, and then it becomes about consistency, and even the consistency has been pretty good in terms of production and having some good blocks. So, what does the next step look like for Sam in your eyes?
He needs to keep up what he's doing, to be quite honest with you. We're putting him in some challenging situations, and he's coming through in a good way, positive way for us. So we'll continue to work on him. We don't go into a week feeling like we have to cap him in any capacity. He's able to do everything we're asking out of that position room, and we feel really good about his progress right now.
When it comes to just working Jameson back into the offense, do you have an idea of how you kind of want to do that yet, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say this, not just about JMO, but about all of our guys. Whoever we have up on game day, we have plays for. They have a role. Some guys more than others, but every week, everyone, we are intentional about getting everyone involved in doing things that they're capable of doing. Whether the play gets called or whether the coverage dictates the ball going to them, that's a different story. But here's what I'll say about JMO. If he's active this week, then he will have plays in for him this week. It's like that with all of our skill guys.
10 years ago, nobody was surprised to see a running back go over 30 carries, but it's just become less and less usual. David was coming off the injury, and I think people were maybe a little surprised to see you guys ride him the way you did in Green Bay. How much of that was just the vibe of the game, trusting what was going on in that contest, and I guess how cognizant do you have to be of his workload management through the course of a season?
That was probably just the flow of that particular game, particularly in the fourth quarter. I don't know the number of carries he got in the fourth quarter, but being up a couple scores, we knew we wanted to run the ball a little bit more, and the way he was running it that game, we felt really good about keeping him going. Coach Campbell talks all the time at that position. a guy can get a hot hand, and that's the guy we want to ride. It just so happened last week, Green Bay, that he was our guy. Will he get 30 touches every game? That remains to be seen. But thought he did a heck of a job handling that. He's physically built to handle that, which I don't know how many backs are built that way anymore. But he's got a good frame for it, and he held up really well.
He had something wild like 115 yards after contact or something. Is that just the power that he runs with, the physicality?
Yeah, there's a physicality factor to it. But for such a big guy, he has some of the best feet I've been around. He finds a way to make these jump cuts and get skinny really quickly and accelerate through small holes, and he finds some cracks that way. So he's got a nice balance between the two. You wouldn't think it for 220 plus pound back. And so here's where we got to keep pushing, because we haven't hit our stride yet offensively. Through 4 games. He's doing all this, and yet I don't know that he's averaging over 4 yards a carry yet. So we have to do a little better job up front on a consistent basis. I see it coming together, I really do. We're making progress there, but we can help him out, because as Coach Montgomery said, like, he was running like a man possessed, and that's what we want from that position.
You said within that, right, the fourth quarter, you're trying to establish a run and run out the clock the way you did. You've done that a couple times this season. I think we look at offense and we look for explosive plays and scoring, but when you can control a game the way you do in those closing minutes, is there anything more valuable to have to possess as an offense?
No, I think the ability to morph into whatever's needed. We can. I feel good that we can throw the ball when necessary and we can run the ball when necessary. I go back to last year, early in the season, we had Minnesota at Minnesota, and we had an opportunity to close out that game with the lead. And that was a failed 4-minute drive for us. And that's something I know the offensive line, they still look back, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot from that week. And so when we get those opportunities in the fourth quarter and we have the ball, we're doing everything we possibly can not to get our defense back out on the field.
This is Carrot. Go ahead.
Why don't you think you've hit your stride yet? Is there any specifics that are frustrating you along?
That's a tough question right now. 4 games in, you'd like to know exactly what your identity is. I do think we're a physical group. We are detailed. We're still figuring out maybe some nuances of some of our new guys. We've had some change-ups on the offensive line already through 4 games. And so the more we can gel, I think the better off we're going to be. But and I'd say we're a little bit more complicated than we were last year also. So we're still working through some things, but I think it's going to come together. I know the quarterback's really comfortable right now, so that gives me a lot of confidence that this thing's going to pull together for us.
So this is Carolina week. I think the common thought in the offseason was that was your job if you wanted it last year. I know you talked about it in the spring, but can you just reflect on kind of going through that process, what you learned about yourself, and maybe how much better you are for having gone through the interviews and getting the attention that you did this offseason?
Yeah, let's end that one right there. I don't want to talk about that stuff during the season. We talked about it in the off season, so I don't mean to be rude there, Dave, but I want to keep the focus on our guys and the Panthers right now.
Specifically with Carolina, though, was it something about the organization that turned you off there? No.
You've got Saint dealing with an abdomen injury. If he's limited at all or can't go, just the confidence you have in the guys that can step in and kind of fill that role.
Yeah, I feel good about all of our guys up this week. We'll see. We'll see as the week goes who exactly is available, but we have plans and contingency plans based on how the week goes for us. But we know it happens every year. And last year we played 9-10 O-linemen. Last year we played 9-10 receivers. Just so happens we're 4 games in and we're already having this circle going on. So we were prepared for it. We talked about it all at training camp. The guys that made our practice squad, we talked about at the end of training camp that they were going to play significant minutes for us at some point this season. Whether that's this week, who knows, but at some point this year they will, and they prepare like that every week.
With that said, what's been your assessment of the progression of Antoine Green in this offense?
he keeps flashing. You know, it's encouraging to watch him because he was, you know, talking with Dre Bly a little bit about him at Carolina. It took him some time to truly develop his craft and his route tree there. And he came on his senior year and had a big year for him. And so seeing that now, I just see a guy he is detailed, he's hungry, he's working every single day. At times, it seems like there's a lot of processing going on and it slows down. And that's what we're working every single day to get out of him, because when he plays fast, he is fast. You know, it shows up, and he can be a really effective player that way. So as much as we can slow the game down mentally for him, his natural talents will come out.
We've talked about the dual threat ability of Jameer since he's gotten here. We see how much you use him in the past game. It seems like your early season opponents have tried to take him out of it with physicality to some success. How much adjustment is needed on your end and his end to kind of counter the way defenses are attacking him?
Yeah, I go back. It was the Atlanta game. Just like you said, shoot is one of the first or second plays of the game, and they do what we call butch technique, and it's something that New England has done for years, from the backfield or even tight ends, to slow them down and disrupt them. Wasn't something we had seen from Atlanta prior this year, or really New Orleans, where that defensive coordinator happened to come from. So yeah, it surprised us a little bit, and so we were more prepared for that going forward, knowing that that's a way that teams didn't know it was going to happen quite that early, that teams were going to try to isolate him. And then really last week too, Green Bay was about a quarter in and saw that they were calling the game completely different when 26 was in the game. And so that's a sign of respect for him, that guys are looking at him and they know where he is on every single play. Hell, the reverse went for a major gain, partly because the ball was in his hands to start the play. So it's a challenge for us as a coaching staff to, even though they have a plan to slow him down and stop him, we are still creating opportunities for him. And that's a good challenge for us.
Is there a key for running back there? I mean, is it just being more aware that it's going to happen? Do you have to change the route path? I mean, how do you...
Awareness helps, but certainly as a coaching staff, we can help him. Yeah.
One of those areas of improvement that you might need is coming out of the halftime, that opening drive. I think you're 3 and outs or something like that. Is that just a focus thing, getting out of your rhythm with the break, or is it just kind of random at this point? Maybe not enough data.
No, there's plenty of data. It's a big deal because it was a problem last year. So it's one that we haven't been able to fix yet. We're certainly aware of it as a coaching staff. The players are aware of it, and so it's something that we're looking to improve. There's a number of ways we're tackling that right now.
How do you go about fixing that?
I said this last year when we had a turnover problem early in the season. Just the awareness of the problem is the first step to correcting the problem. And so we cleaned up our turnovers the second half of the year, and that was part of just drawing their attention to how important that is. Same thing, I think, is a starting point for this is, hey guys, this isn't good enough. It's not what we're capable of. So as long as they are understanding of what we're trying to get done, I think we'll see improvement. And then there's some things that, as a coaching staff, we can do a little better as well.
And just the one motion with Gibbs where you sort of brought him to the line and then sent him back out for that one catch. You got the first down on it quick at the top. Was that borrowed from Kansas City at all? Have you done that much in the past? I don't know, maybe.
Shoot, we did that.
Reminded me of the Super Bowl.
We did that at Chicago 2 years ago with Khalif. Down in the red zone. So I mean, we've been doing these fast motions for several years. I mean, heck, I just showed the guys last week a clip from Miami 2013 of Brian Hartline going in fast motion. So I mean, these things have been going around. They're just becoming a more regular occurrence, I think, on first and second down, and probably it feels like all the teams in the NFL are doing it to some extent right now.
You lost a piece in Khalil Dorsey early. I know it looks like he's getting ready to come back, but you asked Chase Lucas to step in and fill some of that stuff. It seemed like he was the first guy down in coverage pretty regularly in Green Bay. Like, what has Chase meant to you guys off the practice squad these last 3 weeks?
Yeah, he did a nice job in the last game. And the truth is he's done a great job really since he's been here of being who he is. And who he is kind of what you're asking about, I think. But he's just he's ultra competitive. He wants to make a play with everything he's got. So every play you put him out there, man, he's going to fight and scratch and claw and try to end up with the football at the end of it. And it's kind of what he did against Green Bay. I mean, he forced the 2 penalties, and then he had a couple tackles, too. So he did a nice job.
I know it seemed like we spent all off season looking for a replacement or summer looking for a different kicker for Riley, but he's 505 right now. Well, that's us that was looking for just your level of confidence in him and what he's done so far. I know there haven't been many long ones, but to make everything that you put him out there for.
Yeah, he's been solid. We're obviously happy with the way he's played. I think the whole operation also around him has done a real nice job. Snap's been really good. The holds have been outstanding. And he's done a good job of protection. I didn't think the protection was great early on, but thought it's improved. It hasn't been a problem, but I thought it's improved. So I think the whole operation's done a good job. Certainly he's done a very good job.
I asked you this a couple of weeks ago when the Patriots did the one block, from the outside with the guy in. Just how much do you evaluate tendencies, and how much do you look around the league for little things like that maybe could help you down the line?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think anytime something like that happens, it refreshes that in your mind of like, gosh darn, is there anything else that we kind of neglected or forgot about? Those guys did a great job. The way they executed that play, I feel like everyone said it had never been done before, which is not true. I had seen it a long time ago, but it was one of those plays you haven't seen for a long time. And the last time I had seen it, and I can't remember who it was, but the last time I had seen it, you felt like, it was one of those gimmicks that just didn't kind of work that well. And then they took it to another level, and it obviously worked real well. It is something that, obviously you could tell they were practicing. The other operation was very rhythmic, which is a good thing when you're talking about field goals, but can also hurt you. And it was kind of used against them. So it was really well done by New England. It does bring up the point of like what's out there on us, and you're kind of always thinking that way. And early in the week, you always go back and look at your last game out. And for us, we even look at our last game out during the week, kind of when we install each phase. But it definitely puts a highlight on the fact that you better make sure you've checked everything.
Yes, about that. Did you ever get your fishing trip with Belichick?
I've never gotten my fishing trip with Belichick. I'm hoping that one day, I still believe, I think I'm going to win the lottery too, but 1.4, I know every day I drive in, I see that sign, I'm like, wow. I told the guys in the meeting room this morning, and they're like, 1.4, I think I sold some tickets. Well, we had that conversation too. I would say I'd be calling for more fakes. I would tell the head coach first, so he could double check everything I say. Take it with a grain of salt.
Feeling lucky.
There's a pretty long delay on the Quay Walker penalty the other night. Were you guys involved in that at all? How did you see that play out?
It's funny. I saw the guy go over the top. I didn't know exactly where he came from. It's a legal play if you come from within a yard of the line of scrimmage and you don't touch anybody and whatnot. Anyways, I was not sure where he came from, and I was really past that play personally and on to the next one, which for us was the kickoff. So we were down there huddling up, and then obviously they ended up getting the call right, and I'm not really sure exactly how that went down. But I do think, and I don't know if this is the case on that play, the league has used the replay and the Hawkeye system and all that upstairs a little bit more than ever before. And at the end of the day, for me, I mean, that's really how it should be. Just get it right. If there was a penalty or a foul that occurred out there, make sure you get it right. And I think, it probably helps that you're on national television, everyone's watching, they want to make sure they get it right. And there's only one game on at the time. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but if it did, I really commend them for getting the call right at the end of the day.
How probable was executing that leap over the line without touching anybody from a yard away. I mean, is that just off of your plate as a special teams coordinator?
Yeah, no, not totally off your plate, but it would take a certain look. And you definitely need the field goal team to be playing very low. And then you also need a certain player. I can remember back long time ago, but like 2008, 9, 10, we used a guy, Manny Lawson, who's a big, long outside linebacker, and he could jump over the top. And the hardest part about the play is it's kind of like what happened to Quay Walker. He got over the top, but in order to re-elevate in time and to get back up, you got to get over the top and then re-elevate to get the kick. And it takes time to do that. And actually coming from depth, sometimes it takes longer because you're running, then jumping, then re-elevating than it does from the line of scrimmage. But obviously getting over the top from the line of scrimmage is harder. So back in like 2008 or 8, 9, 10, when I was in San Fran, Manny Lawson did it for us and blocked a couple of kicks. And then when I was in Philly, we had a kid, Brian Brayman, who was just very explosive, could do box jumps, 40-something inches from a standstill. I think there's a picture of him online, like jumping over a car that was coming at him or something like that. But just a freak, And he went over the top. We didn't block it, though. He didn't re-elevate in time either. Seattle's done it a few times throughout the years. I think Bobby Wagner may have done that. But anyway, it's a challenging play. You need the right look.
Just kind of curious. Obviously, the new kickoff rules have affected you guys. You only have one kickoff return so far this year. Does that frustrate you at all, considering you put a lot of work into that, I imagine?
Yeah, it's, I did look at some of the numbers on that last week, I guess it was, or the other day. Yeah, is it frustrating? There's definitely fewer at this point of the year. I do know this, that as it gets colder outside and there's wind and there's weather and all that stuff, the number of returns will start to increase as the season goes along. It always does. So even if teams are trying to kick it out. I think the other thing that's happened, though, obviously there hasn't been a ton of fair catches, but there's people just being smarter about when they're returning the ball, when they're not. And truth be told, our game last week is probably a decent example of that. I mean, they're returning the ball 5 yards deep out of their own end zone. They're not getting back to the 20. They're getting penalties on top of it. Ends up being negative field position for them. But I do think what's happening is returners or teams are being smarter about when they're returning kicks, where a year or two ago you would see the ball come out -2, -3, in the end zone. The ball would be coming out, they would return those kicks, and now they're not returning those kicks. So there's not a huge increase in fair catches, I don't think, but there definitely is a big increase of when returners are taking the ball out of their own end zone and when they're not. So I think that's the biggest thing. But like I say, I do think that as the season goes on, you're going to see some teams, more teams have to cover kicks, which is also the whole flip side of that. You guys kind of never really asked me, but I was always ready to tell you if, why do you hit returnable balls? Well, I do know this. At some point, you better be ready to cover those kicks. And if you're learning late in the year when everyone else is better at it, it can be a bigger challenge for you. And I think that's happened historically. Maybe the Denver Broncos played in the Super Bowl when it was in New York and against Seattle. And they hadn't covered a lot of kicks that year because they play in Denver and there's a lot of touchbacks and whatnot. And then all of a sudden you get in a big game. It's late in the year, you're in the playoffs, and you got to cover a kick because the wind or weather won't allow you to kick a touchback. And now the opening kick, I think, of the second half of that game was a touchdown return against them. And, the game was already a struggle to begin with, but that didn't help matters. So I think, it pays to be able to cover kicks, and at some point it'll pay more than others.
Is that Denver example you just gave, is that something you realized in the moment or heard about or talked about after the fact?
It's just an observation, I guess, for doing it for a long time that that these things come up. I mean, it's certainly on my mind. I don't know if it's on everybody's mind, but I just got to worry about one guy and one team.
You had to cover 5 of them this past week against a really explosive guy, so you see a lot of value in that?
Yeah, I would say we got to cover, not had to, but perspective. We got to cover 5 kicks, which we liked. Our guys like covering kicks, and I think it's good for those guys. We got a bunch of good players on those units. They want to go out there and cover. I think that there's a lot to it just psychologically also, not to mention the field position. Ultimately, you're trying to win the game, and field position's a big part of that. But I also think that just psychologically, where you just keep kicking off and you're forcing them to return it, and they're struggling and not getting where they want it, and they're frustrated at the drive start. The offense takes the field. You can see their body language. They're frustrated out there. It's just, I think that there's a lot to that. And it'd be easy to say take the ball at the 25, but, you could also say, well, don't play third down. Just play first, second, and fourth. You know what I mean? You can take plays out wherever you want to, but.